Hello everyone. Welcome to our space today. And today our topic is about inflation. Inflation is a topic that has significantly impacted the global economy. The US government has taken measures 11 times to curb it and keep the economy under control. Similarly, in the Web3 world, Polkadot also has an inflation mechanism to incentivize validators and contributors. However, with the current bear market and general decline, inflation also often gets the blame. So today we have invited key opinion leaders from Polkadot ecosystem to discuss this issue, along with our valuable partner GS from CIK as our co-host. Hi, GS.
Hey Kristen, how's it going? Hope everyone's doing great today. So happy to be a part of this space. I think it's a great topic and definitely a good discussion to have this morning.
Yeah, thank you. And does inflation truly serve its purpose, or should we consider reducing it? But first, I hope everyone interested in this topic help us by retweeting and spreading the word and inviting your friends to join in. Firstly, let's get to know our guests today. Firstly, a warm welcome to Philip, who I just met in Hong Kong. Hi, Philip.
Hi guys, thank you for inviting me to this space. I'm Filippo, Technical Educator at the Web3 Foundation.
Oh, welcome. And let's welcome uh let's welcome Jonathan from Talisman.
Hey everyone, it's nice to be here. Agile, my co-founder, was originally supposed to be on representing Talisman, but he's sick at the moment, so I'm really happy to step in and chat to you today.
Yeah, welcome. Then Luca from Polemic. Hello, Luca.
Hi all, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Pleasure to be on. Forgot the mute button. Co-founder from Polymec. Happy to look forward to the discussion today. Thanks for having me.
Okay, welcome. And next, Rafael from Amforce.
Yeah, hi all. It's me, Rafael. I'm co-founder of mFork. We provide high-quality staking services for Polkadot, and I'm looking forward to the discussion with you all today.
Okay, finally, Tony from Polkadot Insider.
Hello everyone, nice to meet you. I'm Tony from Polkadot Insiders, and today I'm very glad and also very pleasure to be with all experts in the Polkadot ecosystem to discuss about the inflations in Polkadot ecosystem. So nice to be here.
Okay, welcome. Also, we have Aziz from Stella Swap. Are you there? Because I didn't see you, so it doesn't matter. We just get started when he joins in, and we can ask him to say hi to everybody again. So before we delve into today's discussion, it's essential to provide our audience with a basic overview of Polkadot inflation. This will lay the groundwork for a fundamental understanding. So let's start with a key question. What is actually inflation rate of DOT, and where does inflation DOT go? I'd love to direct this question to Philip.
Right, so yeah, inflation on the DOT token is 10%, and it's just like fixed. It doesn't change, it doesn't go up, doesn't go down. It's like 10% right now. It is worth noting that the inflation is used to is diverted partly to the treasury. So this decentralized pot of funds that is used for anything related to technical development, marketing, events, and anything that can, anything that is related to the growth of the Polkadot ecosystem in terms of marketing or technology. The other part of the inflation is used to compensate the network participants. Polkadot is nominated proof of stake, which means that the security of the network is directly related to how many tokens are bound, are locked on chain on the single validators. There are currently 297 validators, and on each of these validators there are like locked tokens, and these are they come from the validator themselves, but also from the nominators. So by locking tokens on chain, you get staking rewards, and staking is basically the activity of locking the tokens on chain and provide security. So inflation is really important, and it depends how many tokens they go to the treasury, and how many tokens from inflation they're going to compensate network participants, depend from the ideal staking rate that is currently 59%, which means that if the current staking rate is 59%, which means that if the staking rate is equal to the ideal staking rate, then all the inflation is going to the network participants, nothing's going to the treasury. While if we depart to the left or the right, then a part of the inflation will go to the treasury and a part of the inflation will go to the network participants. If we go to the right, then basically the network is disincentivizing staking, so the staking rewards are diminishing. While if we depart to the left, it means that the current staking rate is less than the ideal, so the network is incentivizing staking, giving to the participants a little bit more rewards. So that's actually how the whole dynamics work.
Yeah, thank you, Philip. Now I will hand over to our co-host JS from CIK.
Hey, sorry, I'm having a bit of mic issues. Let me just reconnect a new mic quick, and it'll come back to me.
Okay, and I think we can just get started and wait for JS come back. So we can start from our first topic, that is that it's possible to reduce inflation, and is it always beneficial to do this? I think let's start with Luca first.
Sure, happy to tackle it a little bit. Thanks for the evaluation, Filippo. I think Filippo had the best explanations also on Twitter, how he tries to break down the ideal staking rate and the split that goes to the on-chain treasury and the one to the stakers. Looking at the inflation, I definitely agree with the statement that inflation as it is in the tokenized network of Polkadot makes sense and is beneficial overall. Now, looking at the question if it's possible to reduce inflation, it always is. It just depends how it's implemented, but I don't think it's always beneficial. I'm a strong supporter of decreasing the current 10% inflation on Polkadot, but the question is for what price? And if we look what is currently going on in the ecosystem, the entire network is still in a growth stage. And one of the key elements of Polkadot is network security. So we need to have a big enough incentive to secure the network, which is now increased with a higher ideal staking rate. So to reduce the inflation, we can't lose the incentive of the stakers to still convince them to benefit or be enough incentivized to secure the network accordingly. And as many of you know, I'm a big supporter of reducing inflation by burning core time sales, as I believe that this can partially reduce the inflation without being a risk from it ever becoming deflationary, in my personal view.
Awesome. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Sorry, everyone. I lost power and my amplifier went on my microphone, so I had to switch over to my normal mic. Am I all good?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, okay, perfect. And thank you so much, Luca, for that explanation there. We really appreciate your insight. I'll pass the mic over to Jonathan now from Talisman. Just same question.
Yeah, I don't want to repeat anything that Luca and Filippo have mentioned. They both have a pretty well-rounded perspective on the topic. But I'll just kind of second the fact that the network is in a growth phase. And whilst it might not be like the most nuanced perspective, a lot of people do just look at the raw staking rate that the network is offering and kind of weigh that against other kind of product offerings or kind of yields that they can kind of find in other ecosystems. So maybe it's worth considering that keeping the staking rate where it is a good growth tool because people are comparing that number against others that exist in the same market for the same capital. So that's one perspective to take on the staking rate, is that in some way, big or small, it is a growth tool.
Yes, absolutely. And I think we can all agree, like, especially in your growth phases of any ecosystem or any business, inflation can be very necessary, especially like when you have to be competitive in the market. I'm going to ask, I guess, Tony or Raphael, do you guys have any added input to this question here to the panel?
Yeah, yeah. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yeah, Tony, go ahead.
Yeah. So about the actual inflations of dot, I believe that Filippo have explained very well. Most of the rate right now is about 10%, and where's the inflated dot goes? Well, first of all, in the treasuries, of course. The second one is for the validator, because like all the blockchains, Polkadot in a simple way of understanding, still using the proof of stake consensus mechanisms, in which the inflation rate was determined by the staking reward and also for the payout for the validators. And about I think it's very simple for everything to be understand like this. For like uh, in a country, just imagine that dot in a country, and I believe that most of the country right now always have an inflation rate based on their currencies, and this inflations is, I believe, is a good enough to to make the momentum for the development of every single things in that country, as long as we control the inflation rate. So, in conclusions, inflation is a key to push up the economy to grow at some point. And I say it's right now is as long as we control the rate, it's totally fine. And it's not always be a good way to to reduce the inflation too much, because if we control too much, it will reduce many harmful thing for not only the country. So for the same apply about that, I think inflation rate at us right now is suitable. I think it's very clear to understand, and also it's acceptable for everyone, because we have to keep the rate for rewarding the validators, and also have the enough money to push up the treasury for buildings, and also granting for projects, and also some in DBOs or proof to develop the Polkadot ecosystem more. And about the impact of the Polkadot 2.0 into the inflations, I believe all of us right now is know about the core rentals, and I think it's a big deal to to touch out into the inflations. It might have a positive impact to the inflations also. So that's my opinions.
Yeah, and maybe if I could.
Awesome. Thank you, Filippo. I saw you had your hand raised there if you want to comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think it's important to understand that as long as inflation is used to boost the growth of an ecosystem, is good, and the growth of the ecosystem must outpace the inflation. So that's why inflation is really important for really young ecosystems or even developing countries, while it's very bad to have high inflation for countries that are already developed, like US, for example. So I think this is quite interesting because there has been like cases in the past of countries that had high growth, high inflation, like China in the 70s and 80s. There were like kind of reforms that open up the economy to market-oriented policies, and this was a period where there was high economic growth along with high inflation. So I think it's very important to like understand this, that inflation is not always bad, and given the current times and economic time we are in right now, most of the times inflation is like wrongly associated with only bad things, and this is not necessarily the case, and it should not be necessarily the case with Polkadot.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree there. I guess like the best example, I guess we can definitely get that distaste that the perceived look on inflation is, especially right now. And if you're in a Western country or anything like that, obviously the growth is not outpacing inflation. Growth is shrinking in most cases, and people are fleeing and going elsewhere because of that. So there's just a negative sentiment. But when your growth is keeping up or growing, outpacing your inflation, you're doing it correctly. And again, it's all part of your growth cycle. So it's necessary. Raphael, did you have anything else to add to this question? We'd love to hear what you have for your input.
Yeah, sure. So maybe just one thing. I think it always helps to think about the incentives, right? And inflation basically has the role to punish passive holders. So they want to push people into staking or part-chain loan contributions, at least in the current version. So what I think helps to think about is, what if you set inflation to 100%? What if you set it to 1,000%? And studying these extreme cases will show you what the incentives currently are and what might happen if you play around with the inflation rate. So you could also go the other way. What if inflation is 0%? Will people still stake? Would they still contribute to parachain loans? So that's maybe one thing that I think helps to, when thinking about how should we design this parameter, how should we play around, how should we change it as the network grows. I mean, you can look at the only two basically examples that are a bit older now, which are Bitcoin and Ethereum. They started out on a very similar path as Polkadot did, with around 10%, and then they slowly reduced their effective inflation. So I think something like that, as we progress from the growth stage to a more mature stage, would also make sense for Polkadot.
Yes, no, thanks for that input. I guess this is a great segue into our next question now. And that would be, in the context of inflation, what are ways that users can increase their earnings to outpace the actual inflation of the token? Obviously, there's a lot of opportunities in the ecosystem. But I'll pass the mic first over to Jonathan if you'd like to touch point on this question.
Yeah, the obvious way to outpace inflation is to stake your dots. If inflation is around 10%, but the staking rate is hovering around, I don't know, what is it, like 18% at the moment, you're going to outpace that by a long way. So unless you think you can find something equivalent or better to 10% elsewhere, staking your dot either as a nominator yourself, where you select up to 16 validators, or via a pool, where the operators will do it for you, like the talisman pool. That's probably the most accessible and kind of surefire way to outpace inflation.
Awesome. Perfect answer. Great, simple, easy way. Filippo, would you like to add on this and maybe some of the benefits and added input to staking your dot?
No, I think it has been already specified in a very concise way. I would say like staking, liquid staking on parachains, and probably like also understand like that if you're staking as a nominator, you can participate with the same tokens into governance. When currently, if you are in a nomination pool, you are not. It's not possible for you to like vote in governance with the same tokens that you're staking. And yeah, I think it's that's it. I think.
Awesome, perfect. And again, everyone, just keep in mind for this space, nothing you hear on this space is obviously financial advice. This is all for educational purposes. So take everything for a grain of salt and always be sure to do your own due diligence on this. Also, everyone in this space, we appreciate you showing up today. If you can just hit that blue bubble in the bottom right corner of your phone and then be sure to retweet out this space. We also appreciate if you can tag 2 friends in it. This is definitely a valued conversation, so we'd love to get the word out there. Thank you so much. I'll pass the mic over to any of our other guests, Luke, Raphael, or Tony. Do you have any other comments or inputs on this? I know Jonathan definitely hit the spear on the head for the most, straightforward, simple way. But if you guys have any other input on this, we'd love to hear it.
Well, maybe one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far, I think, are the parachain loan contributions, which are, in my mind, like the staking. If you're staking, you are for sure outpacing inflation with your DOT tokens. If you're contributing to a parachain crowd loan, at least in the current model, not in Polkadot 2.0, where they will be replaced. But for now, you're taking a more volatile bet, because usually the project trying to get a slot will pay you something in return. So that's a more volatile bet that may or may not outpace inflation and may or may not have been the better bet than if you just simply stake. So those are the 2 options as I see them. And of course, you can also do some other stuff, like there's lots of DeFi also happening on Polkadot. So that's basically the options as I see them.
Awesome. No, I agree. Yeah, there's definitely some interesting, DeFi utility around the Polkadot ecosystem. But I guess Luca or Tony, do you guys have any other input you want to add in on this? Maybe some things you guys are doing personally. If not, we can move on to the next question.
Okay. To be honest, myself also Polkadot users, and also I also invest a little bit in Polkadot. And in my point of view, it's very important for to make an income to overrate to outplace the inflations is staking. But here there's a there are plenty of way for you to use DOT for staking, and you can use it on for the officially staking of Polkadot for the nominatings, and you can use the parachains staking like Bifrost, Akala, Moonbeam, and also every single thing you can find there. It's very easy for you to searching for the rate and also which one you want to income to for staking. Secondly, you can use your token, your DOT, to participate in some IDO. Yeah, it's also a good way, because you own DOT, and also there are some IDO that asking for use DOT for participate in an IDO, and I think it's also a good way to to use the DOT efficiency. So last but not least, you can use for votings. There's a bunch, like a thousands, not like a thousand, 100 proposal right now in the Polkadot open governance right now. And if you fall in love with any proposals, and if you think it's very critical impact to the ecosystem, you can use your dot and voting for the proposal also. So I think it's a good way, not only the way you earn more than the inflation, but also you can use your dot efficiency in contributing into the Polkadot ecosystem.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tony. Luca, do you have any last words to add to this before we move on?
Sure. On the Polkadot on-chain possibilities, I think everything has been said, that you have the options between staking and the more volatile bet joining crowd loan contributions. Looking in the broader DeFi is also something we're exploring at Polymac, is that we enable direct access and funding possibility with our decentralized multi-chain funding protocol. So that will basically be another way also what the future brings with Polkadot 2.0, replacing the current crowd loan lease models to enable them, or all the ecosystem community, to enable direct access on chain to also invest early stage in projects directly.
Awesome. That's amazing, Luca. I think everyone's pretty excited for all the amazing things going on with Polymech. I know I for sure had my eyes on what you guys are doing, and I recommend everyone else, to keep your eyes strapped on them, give them a follow. Also, give everyone else a follow who's in the panel. I think all these guests here definitely add a lot of value to the ecosystem, especially with what they're working on and what they're building. It's some great stuff. So I'll move on to the next question now. It's pretty straightforward, and I think we'll pass it over to Filippo first, and that is, how will Polkadot 2.0 impact inflation?
Yeah, that's kind of hard, I think, to really predict. But of course, it's important to let to set like the context. So right now, basically, if you want to, so Polkadot is like a big CPU, a big processor with a lot of units. Currently, there are like 55 units, 55 cores, and attached to each one of these core, there is a parachain. So this is the current situation. And in order to get access to this core, you have to do this slot auction where you're basically competing with other project, and whoever bids the highest will likely get the slot. It's a very competitive and very kind of hard way of accessing Polkadot computation. And that's also a problem. I mean, it has been shown that the past year, basically the average price for a slot is more or less 100,000 DOT, which is quite a lot, and not everybody can actually take a slot and just experiment or like run their chain just like that. It's very, very competitive and expensive process. So in view of Polkadot 2.0, where we go out from this like chain-centric perspective, where we have the relay chain, the parachain, and we just think of Polkadot about our source of computation with different cores, and we allocate this core to whoever needs computation. The parachain slot doesn't make sense anymore. So we need a more agile system, and that's why there is the whole like core time marketplace and later on agile core time, where basically to access computation through these cores, you will need to reserve some time on a core, and basically you will need to buy this core time, and whatever will be done with this core time sales will have a different impact on the tokenomics, on the economy of Polkadot. Also, the demand of core time will have an impact. So currently, request for commit number 10, RFC 10, by Jonas at the Web3 Foundation, discussed the possibility to burn this core time. And in my opinion, it's the way to go. So basically, what will be done is that compared to right now, that you just lock your tokens, this 100,000 DOT is just locked there. We don't see any staking, but you will get like some rewards from the parachain you are contributing to. It will not be like this anymore, but basically you will have to buy core time with DOT. And these core time sales will, if they will be burned, then this will add basically a deflationary pressure to the token. That, of course, at the end, at the beginning, will not be a lot. It will be likely very easy to access Polkadot, so it will not be very expensive to basically access computation. And this is basically to create some demand and start very affordable to see how it goes. So I don't expect that burning core time at the start will be a huge, tremendous deflationary pressures on the token. But of course, depending on how this goes, it might be substantial. So the net inflation of the token might decrease with time. And yeah, I mean, this is how I see the future of Polka. I don't expect that will change a lot with the launch of Polkadot 2.0, but there might be some cool and interesting dynamics. Also, because this core time that you buy will likely have a decay time. For example, if I want to access Polkadot computation from now for the next 4 weeks, then it will be just that. It's not that I can I will be able to use that core time that I purchase next year. So as long as I wait, the more this core time will depreciate if I don't use it. So this will create a lot of interesting probably dynamics in the marketplace around this core time, this core time kind of NFTs that we will have to buy time on a core.
No, that's a great breakdown, and I think we all can agree when it comes to the fact that limit or reducing the barrier to entry is definitely one of the biggest factors here. Allowing projects that don't necessarily have the support or capital come in and snag a parachain slot are going to have the ability to come in and do stuff now. And overall, the more communities and more builders we can bring in, the more users that we can bring in as well. So it's all opportunity. Does anybody else want to follow up on this? I know Filippo went pretty deep and gave a nice breakdown, but if anyone else wants to, give their input, we'd love to hear it.
One remaining question might be how the core time kind of cores are portioned up to calculate the ideal staking rate. Currently we're using, I think it's number of auctions is in the calculation for ideal staking rate sometime, since auctions it's leases, or since leases is the primitive that you can use there. So it'll be interesting to see how core time chunks are chopped up and defined, if that's going to be an equivalent bit of arithmetic for the ideal staking rate when core time is live.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out as things get implemented. I'm sure we're all going to be interested. All we can say is I think it's definitely the right shift from my perspective right now. But I know some people can have back and forth. But at the end of the day, I think it's the right direction with Polkadot 2.0. And I think especially in the market conditions we're in and where we're going to be shifting, I think it's the right time as well. Tony, Luca, Raphael, do you guys have any added input on this topic?
Maybe just one thing. When you talk about inflation, I think what is important is that there is a way, once you get out of the growth stage, that you can actually reduce it, and Polkadot 2.0 will deliver that. So you have a way that if core time really gets a lot of demand and usage, and it will obviously become more expensive because it's very valuable, this block space on this decentralized computer, then you have a way that inflation really progressively gets lower as the network grows. And I think that's one of the key points that many people are also interested in. It's not just reducing the inflation right now, but seeing a path forward. How is this going to look in 5, 10, 20 years when Polkadot has really become mature and big? So I think that's maybe one point that I would add here.
Well, I think we lost you there at the end, but I think you got the base part of your point across. So thank you, Raphael. We appreciate that. What we'll do now is we'll move into the last kind of final question, closing statements. Again, we appreciate every single one of you for coming on to the panel today. I think all your value input you've given has really been great for our audience. And again, for everyone listening, thank you so much for showing up today. We really appreciate you showing up to the second space here at PolkaWorld. I'm super happy to be here with Kristen. This is something we're definitely intrigued on having more conversations around the Polkadot ecosystem. So, we plan on hopefully to do more of these in the future. So I guess we'll wrap it up, and I guess finally could each guest to briefly summarize their main stance on inflation as a whole, and then we'd love to hear a brief update for the community here, just on the projects you're building, maybe some progress and some maybe upcoming milestones you might have ahead that you might want to share with the ecosystem, or for the whole audience here. So I'll pass the mic over to Raphael first if you want to start off.
Yeah, sure. So basically, my last comment summarizes my stance on inflation a bit. I think it's fine, the 10% that we have now. I think there should be a way forward to reduce it in the future when we no longer need it and when the network can be fully secure even at lower inflation rates. And I think Polkadot 2.0 will play an important role in that. And about our project mFork, we are a staking company, so we are just continuing what we already do. We are building out our infrastructure continuously, also looking to decentralize, which is very important for the network, not in the sense how how you saw it from Parity or Web3 in that sense, but just for our infrastructure, that we try to also cover more and more aspects of the world, having more nodes set up so that Polkadot can become really resilient in the medium term and long term. Yeah.
Awesome. And what would be the best way if anyone wanted to get in contact with you?
You can reach out to me on Twitter. You can reach out to staking@mfork.com if you have any questions. We also made some guides if you want to join our validators or our nomination pool. So you can reach me any way you want. On Twitter is probably the easiest way.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. I'll pass the mic over to Luca now. Luca, what would be the best way, obviously, for users to get in touch with Polymac? Would you like to share, obviously, some of the updates you've had recently? I know you had one major announcement there as a recent, but if there's any upcoming things you want to share, and obviously your last summarized stance on inflation, we'd love to hear it.
Sure. Let me quickly wrap it up on the inflation topic. I think 2 cents to add is looking at core time and block space. We shouldn't forget the pricing of the market. I personally wouldn't only look at supply and demand of block space, but also its quality, so to speak. So the security of the network and the demand of applications user wants to actually use in the end, right? That can increase the value significantly of the available block space. So with that, we also need an incentive of having token holders, parachains, and the on-chain treasury being incentivized enough to actually use the tokens to bring more value on the chain. Meanwhile, having the inflation high enough that stakers and the validators have a high enough incentive to secure the network enough. So to summarize my stance very briefly, I'm also in big favor of burning the core time with the simple reasoning that we're very, very agile on Polkadot with runtime upgrades to prevent a deflationary model so that the utility token cannot be used and will only be hoarded. Summing this up for Polymac, I think we have a lot in the pipeline, so stay tuned to follow-ups on Twitter. I think our great ambassador community is very vocal about the next big things that will come out. We're happy to share more news in December. And our biggest goal is to drive actually more applications on the Polkadot ecosystem. So we're already in touch with multiple projects, getting ready for the first decentralized fundraisers on Polymac. So at the very beginning of next year, users can be ready to participate in the first regulatory compliant fundraise that will be conducted on chain. And with that one, we have all the steps happening in December to prepare for the fully fledged launch of the Polymac protocol.
Awesome. That's super exciting, Luca. And again, anyone building the space, be sure to get in contact with them. They're doing some great stuff. All right. We'll pass the mic now over to Tony from Polkadot Insider. Would you like to give your last inputs on your stance on inflation? Also, just if you want to give some brief updates on Polkadot Insider and also how to get in contact with you guys. Thank you.
So I think it's just a sum up about the inflations that I have already told in the beginning. So I don't think 10% of the inflations of that is too necessary for being panic or something. I think it's just a normal thing. And if we are just focusing on reducing the inflations, it may impact harmfully to not only the ecosystem alone, but also for the whole participants in there, not only projects, validators, and also more. So I really humble to see how the inflation is going to change, in a positive way in Polkadot 2.0 with the launch of the core rentals. Basically, right now, my team, Polkadot Insiders, have do a lot of researching about the core times, and also we are going to, deep dive more into Polkadot to give you guys soon and a lot of insightful informations about core times and also more about Polkadot. And in our plans and also our process right now, just only contribute a lot as possible and bring the real value to Polkadot and close the gap between the users, the communities, and also the Polkadot and combine all of them together into the mass adoptions and make a real thing like a real Web3 world that we can, you can join together. We can be happy together, and we can uh, being joyful in this ecosystem together to uh, take the advantage of blockchains and adapt it into our real world. So that is our purpose, and also our plans in developing in Polkadot ecosystem.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tony. I can say myself, like, I think I've been a supporter of Polkadot Insider since you guys almost first started back when I was the CMO at BeamSwap. And I definitely, love all the value and information you're bringing to the whole Polkadot ecosystem. Definitely supporting all the projects building there. So thank you so much for everything you guys do. We appreciate it. I'll pass the mic now over to Jonathan from Talisman. Would you like to give your last final inputs on your stance on inflation, and then maybe some stuff about Talisman, what you guys got going on right now, if there's any recent updates you've had, or if there's any exciting things coming? Also, be sure to let everyone know how they can get in contact with you.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. I don't really have a super strong opinion on inflation, but I would maybe close off with the point that it's important we see demand for the network kind of hold in step with inflation as core time is launched. So hopefully that's something we see next year, and we avoid kind of the pitfalls of having an inflationary ecosystem with no demand. So looking forward to core time launching in 2024. From a Talisman perspective, and kind of relevant for this topic about staking in the ecosystem, we'll be launching staking for a couple of new assets on the Talisman staking dashboard this year. So go to app.talisman.xyz in a few weeks' time to see the new assets that have been listed, and watch out for our socials for the announcements there. And other than that, if you do want to find a place to beat inflation, Talisman has become kind of in some ways the de facto solution. So download the wallet and head to the web app to stake in a very easy kind of 1 or 2 click flow, and we'll kind of manage the operation for you in our nomination pool. So if you haven't staked before, that's an easy way to do so, and we'll be able to administer any support tickets you have inside of the Discord as well. Other than that, it was really nice to be on, and thanks for having us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan. We always appreciate having you. It's been a great conversation for sure. So we'll pass the mic now over to Filippo from the Web3 Foundation. Would you like to give your final stance on inflation and maybe talk a bit about what's going on at the Web3 Foundation right now? Any updates or anything you want to share? We appreciate any of the information.
Yes. I also don't have really a strong point. I think now touching the inflation would be more detrimental than beneficial. I mean, Polkadot just launched in 2020. In 2020, 2021, there was no really like real parachain kind of final products. We have seen now a lot of parachain. They have like established products right now. And also at the technical level, the relay chain is kind of upgrading to this Polkadot 2.0 and gearing up like all these tools to accommodate the next wave of adoption. So I think that right now, yeah, I mean, touching the inflation is not probably something that that might benefit the ecosystem. Also, because with increasing number of cores, there will be an increasing number of validators. Now the validators are only 297, and it will likely go up. So then there will be kind of a stable phase of see what's going on with more validators on Polkadot, and I think like inflation kind of must be kind of touched whenever you have like a grown ecosystem with a lot of block space demand and established user base for parachains, these kind of things. But yeah, at the side, we will see still some deflationary pressures coming up if core time will be burned, for example. We will start seeing a little bit the effect of core time sales maybe on inflation if there is a lot of demand for Polkadot computation. Yeah, I think that's what I think. And at the foundation, recently we have the Future program. If you are looking for funding, You can apply on the Web3 Foundation page. And if you want to stay up to date with technical development and new things, you can see the wiki page. We are currently reorganizing the whole documentation, so it must be currently up to date. We're still adding some stuff, but it's a good place to start to know about the Polkadot ecosystem. And if you want to reach out to me, you can contact me through Twitter. I should respond on a daily basis. So that's the main channel I use right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Filippo. I think we've definitely had some great conversations, some great talks with some amazing people here today. So now we'll move into the last section of the space where you just touch points on some of the community questions. And this is for any of the panelists. So if any of you want to jump in here, feel free to after ask the question. So the first one here being is, how does Polkadot inflation rate compare to other mainstream blockchains? Does anyone want to comment on this?
Yeah, maybe a short one on this. It's always a question whether you compare the actual inflation rate or the real inflation rate. So if you compare, for example, in Polkadot, you currently earn around 18 to 20% in staking rewards, but inflation is only 10%. So your real yield is around 8% that you get. And if you compare this for all the networks that are out there, you will see that Polkadot is actually among the networks that have a higher real yield. So it's actually worth it to stake on Polkadot. And then what you sometimes also see is that people just take just the inflation rate that is not adjusted, or like yields that you can earn in the system that is not adjusted for the inflation rate. So I think it's important that when we discuss this, that people also consider, what is actually the yield that I can get as a holder or as a user of the network to outpace this inflation. And there Polkadot actually scores quite well.
Awesome. Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment on this? Okay, perfect. Yep. So we'll move into the last question from the audience. That being, so the main goal of Polkadot right now is growth. So as that leads to healthy inflation. So how does Polkadot achieve growth? Currently, a lot of traffic is being attracted away by rollups and modular blockchains. Does anyone have any comments on this?
Sure, can I please start with this one? I think it depends how we want to define growth, but looking at growth of on-chain and user traction, I think it all starts with having more applications. So a lot of the tech stacks and possibilities that just came out within the Polkadot ecosystem over the last 3 months, and the crucial pillars adding towards it in the next 1 or 2 months enables a major change in the entire ecosystem of what we're able to offer in the DeFi space overall. The more applications we have that end users can actually use, the more users we can even attract. So now looking also at the bridges regarding the interoperability narrative of Polkadot, the user experience needs to be improved on that front as well to have a broader reach and also tap into additional cohorts being able to use the network. So I think looking at the growth, it's much more important to make the journey of an end user as easy as possible, because my personal opinion is very simple, that a user that wants to use a DEX, for example, because I think it's the easiest example in that case, he doesn't care if he uses a DEX on Ethereum or a DEX on Polkadot. He wants to pay less fees and he wants to use the best application in the end. And I think this is the way to go, where with the right application, we will attract the right users. And also with that, I think we need as many applications to cover as many use cases as possible, because no one will know which one is going to be the long-term winning application in crypto overall.
Awesome. Thank you, Luca. Filippo, you have your hand raised. You want to jump in?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think Polkadot is more for institutional use cases and big companies rather than purely on the end user. That's why I think that the most of the growth will come when there will be real use cases of this big institution bringing their users into Polkadot. So that's my part of the view. also, I think a crucial aspect because of this like large institutional adoption of Polkadot. I've seen in Bali, for example, the government is looking for like security and a platform that is able to handle a lot of user and traffic in a secure, decentralized way. And this is currently not possible with layer twos, for example. So it is I think that is very important, like to realize here that if there will be the next billion users in blockchain, it's very unlikely that L2 will be able to handle it in a decentralized, secure way, and that's why where Polkadot will probably get a substantial share of this user base because it's able to handle this kind of traffic, and it's currently it's currently being prepared for that. So yeah, that's my standpoint.
Awesome, thank you. I think you hit a good point. Obviously, like I think one thing we can realize, and like a few of the speakers here, they hit some points. Like from the community side and the average user side, as much as security is an importance, obviously, I think one of the biggest things for the average user is convenience, especially in today's society. It's why people use taps on their credit cards and debit cards. Obviously, it's not safe and secure, and you're not insured if anything happens via that if you're scammed that way. But people use it out of convenience. So creating those easier pathways for users to on-ramp and get on board with different projects is one thing, but definitely I think that's the other thing that institutions like to see is a user base and that growing. So I think when it all comes together, we'll definitely see some great success in this ecosystem. There's some great builders, there's some great things in the works. I think some changes have been made as of recently that have definitely shooken up the ecosystem, but it's all for the positive in the end. And I think there's some key leaders in the space that are really trying to take a lead here and move everything in the right direction. And I love to see where Polkadot's going to go, not just within the next year, but in the next couple of years. Like I know some people can be concerned about inflation. I think we hit a lot of the valuable points in this talk today where, inflation is necessary, especially in a growth cycle. You just need to balance and pace your growth. So again, as we wrap up this space, we just want to say thank you from myself at Sick on the Block and PolkaWorld for all the panelists for coming out today. We know we appreciate your time and coming out to have this conversation that needs to be had. And we appreciate all of the listeners. We thank you for coming out and listening into this space. If you happen to miss anything, don't forget this space is recorded, so you're going to be able to check it out once it's over. So you can come back, take a listen in if you might have missed anything at the beginning, or if you just wanted to have another re-listen, because again, I think this was a really great conversation we had today. Be sure to follow every single one of the teams and people here up on the channel. Again, these are the people here in these times right now where it's not so easy, working really, really hard to really build the future of blockchain. So be sure to follow them, follow their communities, get activated, get involved. We appreciate every single one of you, and I'll pass the mic over to Kristen now for her closing statements.
And thank you once again to all the guests today and to JS. And I thank you for your support of PolkaWorld, and we hope to organize more interesting topics and invite everyone to discuss and build Polkadot together. And thank you, everybody. And see you next time.